in Codsall in South Staffordshire. I've got a bit of a confession to make with the cake. I've been trying to keep it hidden, but if you turn it round, I'm afraid I have been nibbling away at the back of it. It is delicious. It is really, really delicious. But I haven't got a knife, so I'm using a little sort of spatula from the coffee shop to get into it. So it's been very nice, very good. So thank you to the girls for that one this morning. Let's take it to the newspapers. And we'll start with the Mail on Sunday. It has a picture from the Queen's cameo appearance alongside Paddington Bear with the headline, "Marmalade, Your Majesty." Rock and roll, says the Sunday Mirror, with a picture of Queen's Brian May kicking off the party at the Palace last night. The Sunday Times has a picture of the Queen having tea with Paddington Bear, saying it's been the party of a lifetime for the world's grandmother. And the Sunday Express has Prince Charles, who said, "Thank you for being there for us, Mummy." Let's go through the papers then in a bit more detail with royal broadcaster and commentator Rafe Haydel-Mancou and our very own Neil Oliver. Gents, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Neil, let's start with the Observer, should we? Looking at being patriotic, and Labour says, well, if you're on a patriotic party, it's them.
I know, I find this, I am breathless at the audacity. Writing in today's Observer, Lucy Powell, the Shadow Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, says Labour is the party which now stands up for much-loved British institutions. Trying to position Labour as the party of patriotism. The either party, frankly, either the Conservatives or Labour, would have the temerity, the unmitigated gall after the last few years to claim love of country. Absolutely takes my breath away. I mean, from 2016 and the Brexit referendum, when politicians of every stripe colluded in an attempt to thwart the will of the largest plebiscite. To demonstrate love, if there was a time to demonstrate love of country, it would have been in standing up for and with the will of the people, which was not done. And in so many ways, it's demonstrably the case that neither party is committed to anything heartfelt. I find that both parties are hollow. They are guided by what they think is the whim or the notion of the day. There's no commitment from either Boris Johnson or any of his little wizards. Neither is there anything from Keir Starmer or his. And I find it the most blatant, hypocritical power grab for Labour to stand up and say that after what has been going on in recent years that they are the party of patriotism. I am appalled.
What do you reckon, Ray?
No, I agree completely. I mean, the Labour Party of Kevin Attlee was a proudly patriotic party, but that bears no resemblance to the party that we see today. There's been this sneering condescension towards this country, towards English people. You remember Emily Thornberry and a condescending attitude towards the flag. And there's been this elevation of identity politics and over British culture. It's almost as if any identity is fine to have in the Labour Party, apart from your British or your English identity.
You do get a sense of that. I was saying on air the other morning that it's nice to be able to feel proudly British without having to sort of somehow apologise for it at the moment.
Yes, I mean, I think it's important, to say that the Jubilee, it's a splendid moment, and it's bright and it's uplifting, but it is just a day. It is just a brief and transient time, and reality for people, the everyday lived reality for people at the moment is hard and getting harder. And what people need from politicians at a time like this is some kind of leadership, and also a sense from them that they believe in the same things that the people of the country broadly believe in. And there has been a gross dereliction of duty there. I don't think there is anything heartfelt in the political class, or if there is, it's not demonstrated. They keep that light under a bushel for some reason. And I think it's so important. Yes, Jubilee, great, good to see it, good that these moments are marked. But what we need at the moment is leadership. And this tawdry attempt by Labour to just pick on the latest thing to claim that we are the party of patriotism it's just a blatant attempt to try and obfuscate from reality.
But it's important to remember, 2019 was supposed to be the great realignment election. when the country moved away from using economics as a distinction of which party you belong to culture. Because culture is now the real determination. And we see that with Brexit. We've even seen that in COVID reactions. And the Labour Party lost all of its small c conservative patriots who came over first to the Brexit Party and then with Boris Johnson to the Tory Party. And that was supposed to have set the battleground for the future. And the great lost opportunity, I think, are all of the scandals that have engulfed the Tory Party, because you needed to have at least one more election to solidify that small c Labour vote. And the disgust that you're seeing in the country towards the Tory Party makes it almost inevitable that there's going to be a huge loss of seats. So I think Labour sees that, and Labour's trying to get back those small c Conservative voters who they lost.
In terms of what you say about people's view about the Tory Party, Nadine Zahawi, who actually some are saying could be a potential leader, in the Mail on Sunday, talking about free speech, because of course there is the Tory scum yelling which goes on at times. He's saying, well, yell it all you like, it's free speech.
Yes, well, he quotes Ronald Reagan, who said, freedom is always one generation away from extinction and must be fought for and protected. And he's written a piece here in the Mail based upon an experience he had at Warwick University, where he was cancelled by the braying mob and shouted down, Tory scum, Tory scum. And there's a great challenge facing the country, because if all those who had voted in the last general election had been limited to people under 25, Jeremy Corbyn would have had over 100-seat majority in Parliament. There wouldn't have been a single Tory MP elected had the youth of Britain voted in that election. And this is something that the Tory Party hasn't come to terms with. There's a great challenge going on, and universities are the hotbed of all of this. There's a complete radical agenda in these universities. Suppression of free speech is not a rare thing at all. It's gone in my lifetime from having 2 liberal professors for every 1 conservative professor to having 8 or 9 liberal professors for every 1 conservative professor. And in that environment, students don't feel that they can speak up. When they see this happening to a Minister of the Crown, there's a suppression of free speech on all levels. So whilst the government's been very disappointing on so many levels in terms of its culture war and attack on the working issues, on the one issue of free speech, they have been very good, actually, in talking the talk. But I'd like to see them actually walk the walk and demonstrate it.
But what about, the reality then is to contemplate the online safety bill, which... Again, I struggle to put into words how irate I feel about that. It's trumpeted as something that is somehow going to secure freedom of speech online, and it's absolutely the antithesis of freedom of speech online. It's going to leave the big operators, those in control of the big social media platforms, with little option but to take the safe route, which is basically to censor anything that moves in advance. Better that than face the consequences of inadvertently or otherwise putting something out into the open public domain for which they could be criticised. The online safety bill is a disaster for free speech. That is online is where most people, that is the public square now. The social media platforms are in lieu of the public square. That is where the ideas of the day are supposed to be discussed and debated. The online safety bill is going to make sure that is even less possible. So how anyone from within the Tory Party can claim that they're standing up for freedom of speech in the context of the online safety bill, I do not know.
Well, it's the public square in the modern age, where it's meant to be. What was always the place we used to go and discuss our thoughts and air our views was down the pub. Neil, the Mail on Sunday, looking at the fact that there could be up to 10,000 pubs, nightclubs, as well as that place, fish and chip shops and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I've got it here actually. It's the thing is that the lived reality for people, the Jubilee notwithstanding, the reality is that tens of thousands of businesses in the hospitality sector face closure. The fish and chip shops I'm reading elsewhere in the Mail, likewise, facing closure. The devastation that has been wrought upon the economy by the disastrous, the policy disaster that was lockdown and everything that went alongside it. That is what is the reality for people living in the country today. And my heart bleeds for people who spent lifetimes building up small businesses, building up restaurants, cafes, looking after pubs and all the rest of it, fish and chip shop owners, all of that is so imperiled at the moment, and that's where the focus has to be. The Jubilee's been great, but someone has got to take responsibility for the other 364 days of the year.
Yeah, I mean, but when it comes to these small businesses and the pubs and the chip shops and all the rest of it, it's very difficult to know now how we actually go about trying to revive it, because that's surely got to be a lot of it just down to people power, just down to us saying, right, we'll go down the chippy tonight or whatever.
Well, no, absolutely, but there's actually a war of attrition going on against these organisations, because unfortunately, in the case of the fish and chip shops, for example, 45% of the white fish in the world is controlled by Russia, and there are import tariffs coming in on cod that's being imported to the UK. 40% of fish and chip shops here depend upon that source. Now, as far as we can see, things are going towards a stalemate in the Ukraine. There's no end in sight. We could be in even for a decade of conflict there. At what point does the world, the West I should say, have to reevaluate sanctions? Should they or should they not? That's another debate, but the issue is, how can our businesses survive in such circumstances when there's no end in sight to these punitive restrictions?
I feel increasingly that what is needed is for the government to get out of everyone's way. That thing about, the most terrifying, string of words in the language, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That's absolutely the case, and it's demonstrably been the case for the last couple of years that the government, aided and abetted by the opposition, have completely undermined and destroyed so much of the economy. And what needs to happen, for goodness sake, is please, government and the rest of them, get out of the way of people who know how to run businesses, entrepreneurial types who just need the horizon cleared in front of them, and they will rebuild these things. The government would just get out of their faces for a while.
Well, look, let us know what you think. GBNews at gbnews.uk. Rafe, Neil, thank you both. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.